We are coming on the air with hope fading fast to find survivors from Hurricane Helene, now the deadliest storm to hit the mainland of the U.S. in nearly 20 years. President Biden is in Georgia now, and we're live in two of the hardest hit states with more as rescue teams get deeper into the areas hardest hit. Also tonight, the vice president making a play for Republicans in a Wisconsin town that's the birthplace of the GOP, as she's slamming former President Trump for a policy split from a surprising source. His own wife. We've just heard from Mr. Trump in Michigan. We're going to tell you what he said in just a sec. Plus, the L.A. District Attorney giving an update on the high-profile Menendez murder case everybody's talking about again because of that new Netflix series. So, could what he says help free the Menendez brothers? Then, new trouble for Tesla. Why the Cybertruck's facing another round of recalls. Why a lot of folks love it anyway, and others just love to hate it. And so-called countertop composters may have one catch: not actually doing any composting. So is it sustainability or is it a scam? We're getting into it a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air with hope starting to fade down in North Carolina and Tennessee, even as the number of people killed by Helene keeps going up. Now 215 victims. That means it is the deadliest mainland hurricane in the U.S. since Katrina. President Biden in Georgia in just the last hour taking a look at the devastation there, trying to reassure folks that the federal government is there to help and that we'll be there to help. Watch.
I want you to know I see you, I hear you, I agree with you, and I promise you we have your back.
Short term and in the long one, struggling here. Earlier today, he was out in Florida. This is what active recovery looks like there. Homes flattened, barely left standing in some instances. Not one of those storms, Hurricane Ian, Irma, Ike, not Superstorm Sandy, has been as deadly over the course of the last 20 years as Helene, and the number killed could still go up. On top of that, across the Southeast, nearly 1 million people are without power. Georgia, North and South Carolina in particular, struggling with a lot of outages, leaving people isolated in communities without electricity, without cell service, in a lot of cases with barely any food and water either. Watch.
The water was all the way up to our windows, and our neighbors were flooded out. The poor little lady next door, she was still in her house trying to mop out water. We have got to rebuild everything.
It was unexpected. We've seen no help through here.
Morgan Chesky is live for us tonight in Tennessee. Sam Brock in North Carolina as we move forward with our team coverage. So, Sam, let me start with you. We know that it seems like one of the devastating headlines today is hope fading fast to find more survivors. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So, Hallie, there was definitely a foreshadowing coming in today that the number of fatalities for Buncombe County, where I am, on the outskirts of Asheville, was going to go up. It did go up from 61 yesterday to 72 today. This is the largest sort of epicenter of fatalities so far anywhere in the storm zone. What was perhaps more surprising, if not eye-opening, was what we heard from the sheriff about an hour ago when he said there's also 200 missing. 200. How do you define that, right? Because for days, people have been asking our local officials here, are we talking about welfare checks or people that you genuinely believe cannot be found right now? And he said, folks are asking like there's a finite amount of people that could be missing or a sentence with a period at the end of that. It's not how it works. We're getting communications coming in every single day that are fluid in nature. People are going and knocking on doors, and essentially there are communication breakdowns. I suspect there are language barriers that are playing into this, Hallie. Also, they're not entirely sure, these officials that are going door to door, how many people live in each household, and there are unhoused residents of the town and of Asheville and of Buncombe County that people aren't necessarily sure what their permanent residence or regular residence would be. So tallying up these figures becomes an exercise in futility. Still, though, just to hear 200, obviously a very large number. Over my shoulder, you're looking at a bridge here. Again, we're on the main road going from one of the local towns here out to Asheville. Downtown Asheville is in that direction. There is what appears to be a structure, likely a home, sitting on top of the bridge. No one has been able to get back and forth here for days. And this is just emblematic of what so many areas right now are dealing with on the ground. And then as you head up into the mountains, access is an issue, cellular communication is an issue, and we don't really know, Hallie, how many people are actually missing.
You talk with the fire chief in one community about the timeline here, because that is the question for so many people. How long is it going to take for them to be able to function, even to a degree, given the picture that you've just laid out here, Sam? What is the sense of that? Do we even, can we even get our arms around that yet?
Not really. The span that residents have been told are gleaming from their conversations is anywhere between 6 weeks and 6 months just to get water back. And if you want to think about that for a second, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, the basic things, that many of us take for granted, people right now are discovering they cannot do. Even flushing a toilet and trying to find one that functions, right? It's become a major issue. I did speak with the fire chief today to say the piping itself needs to be replaced, put back in new piping, and then roads restored over that. How long is that going to take? Here was his response.
I was born and raised here. And this is, I don't think there's a word to describe it. I don't know how long this is going to take.
If there is a silver lining to all of this, I can't tell you how many people I've seen today, Hallie. Random strangers in groups in motorcycle clubs, in the Cajun Navy, driving around with big boxes of water and paper towels and anything you can imagine strapped to their trucks and their cars and their ATVs, distributing it to as many people as they can find. That's the spirit that's here in Western North Carolina, but obviously a lot of questions left unanswered tonight.
Yeah, no kidding. Sam Brock live for us there in Asheville. Thank you. Let me bring in Morgan Chesky, who's live for us in Elizabethton, Tennessee. And Morgan, you had an opportunity, and we see those choppers behind you. You actually got up in the air and saw this devastation from above.
Yeah, Hallie, this is an operation that's been ongoing essentially as soon as the skies cleared up after Helene made its way through here. And we joined the Army National Guard aboard a Black Hawk helicopter. They have been tasked with an incredible mission, and that is to try and service all of these communities in North Carolina and here in Tennessee that have been cut off as a result of so many roads and bridges being washed away. We made multiple stops today. Our first was in a community here in Carter County known as Elk Mills. Hallie, you see the pictures, you see the video. When you land in a place that has been cut off and you are surrounded by devastation in every direction, it is heartbreaking, it is humbling, it is almost every emotion. I spoke to one woman there who says that 2 crucial bridges were washed away. The sight of volunteers and these crew members offloading their helicopter with food, with water, with supplies, medical supplies as well, almost brought her to tears. I think she was incredibly touched because they are just a tiny community, and yet there is a Herculean effort to reach each and every one of them here to make sure they have everything they need. Hallie, keep in mind, just a helicopter's load of supplies, that gives them enough hope to buy another day or 2 maybe in the condition that they're currently in, while crews race to reestablish roads and dump dirt and gravel to get anything they can down on the ground to allow some sort of vehicle to move back into these mountains. One striking thing as we were flying over this area, Hallie, was that these beautiful green Tennessee hills just jump out at you, and yet they partially contributed to the devastation we've seen, in that when you have 30 inches of rain falling in such a short amount of time, all of that water converged in those river valleys, wiping out nearly everything in its path. We flew over one area. You could see a bridge ripped off its foundation and a railroad track that was still submerged. And there are sites like that up and down these valleys here in Tennessee. Another thing that jumped out to me, Hallie, was as we flew over a hillside, you could see almost one whole side of trees snapped over. I asked the pilot, did a tornado recently happen here? He says, no, that is the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, just a telling signal as to how powerful this storm was. It didn't even strike this area as a proper hurricane and it's left such incredible devastation behind here. Hallie?
Morgan Chesky live for us there in Elizabethton, Tennessee. Morgan, thank you. Let me explain what's happening coast to coast, right? Because you've got part of the country now in the Appalachians in recovery mode from all of that flooding and that horrific number of victims from Hurricane Helene. You go out west and you see millions of people facing intense and potentially dangerous heat. You've got heat alerts in effect tonight for tens of millions of people from California to Colorado to New Mexico. We're already seeing new records in some of those spots. Let me bring in Bill Cairns for more on that. I mean, this is a split screen coast to coast, Bill, 2 different types of natural disasters.
Yeah, and this sets off those climate alarms. I mean, this is October. This is what I'm I usually talking about the first snow in the mountains and who's going to get their first frost. Usually I'm done showing maps like this that show how many millions of people are under heat warnings. But we got 29 million people, and a lot of people in the Southwest and California are just saying, okay, this has to end eventually, right? I mean, these are all the locations that have a chance of setting record highs today. We had dozens of them from Texas to Oklahoma, Missouri. We just tied the record high in Phoenix. I'm going to touch more on this in a second. Vegas, Reno, Fresno, Palm Springs has a chance of getting up to about 110 today. And let's talk specifically about Phoenix, because this is all-time stuff, not just for Phoenix, but as far as records go across the country. Now that we tied it today, we've gone 10 days in a row, each and every day, with a new record high. And during this streak, we set the all-time September high of 117 and the all-time October high of 113. And here's the thing. The forecast calls for record highs through the weekend all the way into the beginning of next week. We may go 16 straight days in a row, Hallie, with record highs in Phoenix. That would be the all-time record for any city in the country. That has never happened before.
So what does this mean for the nexus with the potential for wildfires, Bill, for fire risk?
Oh, this has everyone very fearful. So we already have red flag warnings throughout much of the northern Rockies. And here's the October forecast. Much warmer than normal through the Rockies, throughout all the west, and much drier than normal. So once we start getting those Santa Ana winds, which are expected as in the next month or two, we are very fearful of what the end of this fire season could bring.
Bill Cairns, thank you very much. A lot for you to watch tonight. Appreciate that. We got to get to some breaking news now tonight from Capitol Hill, because Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York is apologizing now after new pictures surfaced of him in blackface. The pictures come from college when Lawler dressed up as Michael Jackson. He's from one of the swingiest districts in the country, in New York's Hudson Valley. Let me bring in Julie Sirkin, who's joining us now from Battleground, Pennsylvania. I understand we're just getting a statement from the congressman where he's apologizing.
Yeah, he is apologizing, Hallie, but he's also saying he was a super fan of Michael Jackson. He was mentioned in the bio of Michael Jackson. He said, quote, "I am a student of history, and for anyone who takes offense to the photo, I am sorry. All you can do is live and learn, and I appreciate everyone's grace along the way." Again, this is somebody who's saying that it's been well documented in the Daily Beast and other articles that he's such a fan of Michael Jackson. He went to his trials. He danced in his music videos. But, of course, the situation is very different, clearly, by that picture that was obtained by the New York Times, showing him in what appears to be blackface, dressed up as Michael Jackson, as you said, in college, something Lawler is apologizing for. But, man, is it a close race in his district. This is New York District 17. Lawler is one of 5 Republicans trying to hold on to their seats. He's going up against Mondaire Jones. This is a former congressman who split districts after redistricting and is running now against Lawler. We reached out to his office, too. So far, no comment. But, of course, this could be pivotal in Republicans' control. We're trying to hold on to their control of the House come November. And this is something that voters are going to take very seriously, of course, as they are just a 3-point margin between Lawler and Mondaire Jones, of course, within the margin of error. So any bad news is bad news bears for Lawler here.
Yeah, Julie Sirkin, thank you very much for that. A lot to watch on that front, in that race in particular. Thank you. Also in the world of politics, in the next hour or so, we will see Vice President Kamala Harris side by side with one of the most well-known Republicans in America. You see her there, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, one of the most famous Republican last names in this political era, too. Cheney's crossing the aisle to back Harris. You probably know by now, she is no fan of Donald Trump. She voted for his impeachment. She served on the January 6th committee. And she has given the Harris-Walz ticket and congressional Democrats her full-throated endorsement. And today's event is interesting. It's in a battleground state. It's in Wisconsin. But not in like a battleground district. Instead, this town of 7,000 is known for one thing: being the birthplace of the Republican Party. You're looking at it right there. It's got the signs up, that little white schoolhouse. 170 years ago, the founders of the GOP held the first meetings here over opposition to a bill that would have expanded slavery. Gabe Gutierrez is where the VP will be speaking in Ripon, Wisconsin. This is a place that gave Donald Trump 62% of the vote in 2020. Hasn't backed a Democrat since LBJ. It's not like she's going there to flip people in that area necessarily, but she is clearly trying to send a message by standing on this kind of like Republican ground with somebody who's got if not influence in the Republican Party now, at least a last name that at one point had a lot of influence.
Yeah, Hallie, it's quite symbolic, isn't it? Look, she's not trying to get these hardcore Republican voters here. She's going for the moderates with this appearance, and those Nikki Haley voters, those voters that perhaps years ago supported John McCain. I just spoke with one rally goer here who said that he actually voted for Trump back in 2016, but changed his mind once Trump got into office. Those are the types of voters that she is trying to reach right here, Hallie. And you can see it all around me. There's signage that says country over party. That's something you would have heard back from John McCain, and Liz Cheney has already endorsed her. But think of the symbolism of this. At the birthplace of the Republican Party, she will stand alongside Vice President Harris in the stage behind me for the first time since offering that endorsement. Again, the Harris campaign is hoping this can make a big difference in key swing states like Wisconsin, where the margins are expected to be so close, Hallie.
What have you heard from Republicans in Ripon there, specifically about Liz Cheney, who, listen, she does not represent where the party is. I think she acknowledges that. She knows that. She has been speaking out against Donald Trump early and often. Yeah, look, and I spoke with a former Republican who's here at this rally. He has one opinion of Liz Cheney. There are others that have a very different opinion of Liz Cheney. And look, we spoke with some Trump supporters earlier today here in Ripon, and they were not pleased with Liz Cheney. They say she doesn't speak for the modern Republican Party, and they are very skeptical that she's even here at all. Take a listen to what they had to say.
Do you still consider them to be Republicans?
Mm-mm.
Why?
I feel like you should always be one way and not just follow.
How is anybody going to be able to believe your words and trust what you're going to do?
They're not putting country over party.
And I was referencing there not just Liz Cheney, but other high-profile Republicans like Adam Kinzinger and the son of John McCain as well, others that have come out in support of Kamala Harris. And the Harris campaign has been trotting them out, and they expect to really hit that message over the coming weeks in places here like Wisconsin, and they're hoping they can cut into Trump's lead in some of these deep red counties, and they hope that that can make all the difference in this election, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much. The Harris campaign is also pouncing on something we're hearing from the Trumps. Well, I should say Trump singular, not the former president himself, but the former first lady instead, Melania Trump, who's mostly been out of the spotlight this campaign, right? Until now. That's because she's got a new book out where she describes supporting abortion rights. The Harris campaign calls Mrs. Trump's comments sad, they say. Sadly for the women across America, they say Mrs. Trump's husband firmly disagrees with her. And in this video posted online, watch how Melania Trump uses some language many Democrats use now to make her point about abortion access.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth.
Garrett Hake is in Saginaw, Michigan, where former President Trump was just rallying. Okay, Garrett, we don't hear from Melania Trump often, right? In the instances when we do, it is unusual that she breaks with her husband, and even more unusual that she breaks with him so publicly and on an issue that is so critical, as Democrats see it, to November as this one. Former President Trump definitively does not support what Melania Trump is describing here, abortion as an essential right, as she puts it, to women. So how should we be interpreting this, and what's the move for Melania Trump here? Can't tell if it's just me or if is Garrett's mic muted? Not a Zoom, but we're going to have somebody on his end click a button, and we're going to come back to him. In the meantime, we want to get into some other news that's happening, this time overseas, because tonight we are just learning from the Middle East that some 250 Americans have been evacuated from Lebanon on private American planes. It comes as right now Israel is warning more people to get away from the border as fighting escalates with Hezbollah. At least 9 people are now dead in the capital of Beirut in Israel's deepest attack into Lebanon yet. Let's go to Aaron McLaughlin in Tel Aviv for us. We're also seeing the ground operation, right? The footprint there expand in Lebanon. Tell us more about where things stand.
Yeah, that ground operation expanding, Hallie. Today, the Israeli military ordering the evacuation of 25 Lebanese towns and villages north of the Litani River. Some of those towns and villages 25 miles north of the Litani River. And the Litani River is significant because that marks the border of the buffer zone as decided by that UN Security Council resolution in the wake of the Israel-Lebanon war of 2000. 2006. So it's significant that Israel today signaling that it's going to be pushing back that boundary. Meanwhile, there are these clashes that are going on inside Lebanese towns and villages near the border, according to Israeli media reports, clashes between Hezbollah fighters and Israeli soldiers. Those clashes turning deadly. The Israeli military today announcing at least one Israeli soldier was killed in those clashes, a paratrooper. That in addition to 8 Israeli soldiers that were killed in 2 separate incidents yesterday, which leaves the question, where is all of this going? We just heard from the Israeli military spokesperson announce that Hezbollah fired some 230 rockets toward Israel. And remember, the stated goal now of this war, per the Israeli cabinet, is the safe return of some 60,000 Israeli civilians to their homes in the north. At what point will that objective be reached? The U.S. has long expressed its concern about the potential for Operation Creep. And today we are hearing that the Israeli military is seeming to expand that ground operation further north. Hallie.
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much for that. I want to bring it back here to home now, back to the political trail where Garrett Haake is rejoining us now in Saginaw, Michigan. Just give me tell me you can hear me.
I hear you, Hallie,
there you
and
are.
I'll pick up where I left off.
Well, because here's what I would say. There's one interesting thing. There's a lot of interesting things about this, but especially if this was an olive branch to try to win over moderates who have a position that is more favorable towards abortion access, does it run the risk of turning off the people who back former President Trump because of his position to restrict abortion access?
Hallie, I think this is a case where people like you and me often read into strategy where there is none. I think what is more likely to be the case here with this particular incident is that this is a position that the publication of it now will probably help Melania Trump sell more books. And I think that this is really about a difference between her and her husband. And I think perhaps the most interesting part of it, at least politically, is that Melania Trump still very much supports Donald Trump. Now, we've not seen her on the trail. She's not been particularly outspoken in this particular cycle, but she's made it clear she's supporting him, will vote for him, and she's said that in interviews as recently as last night. If anything, I think these comments from Melania Trump may provide some degree of a permission structure to other women who feel similarly about abortion, but also feel like there are other issues that are more important and that will animate their votes for Trump. We've heard that from some voters on the ground here in Michigan just today, although notably men, not women.
One thing that former President Trump did not bring up where you were was anything about Jack Smith, somebody for whom we know there is no love lost on the part of Donald Trump, especially with that breaking news that you covered last night on some of the new information, the new evidence we're just now seeing that prosecutors allege in the election interference case against him. Was it interesting to you that he's not trying to sort of fan that flame against Jack Smith again?
I found it a little bit surprising only because in the past, fanning that flame has been good for Donald Trump in rallying Republicans to his side and in helping him raise money. I think on the latter, the idea of rallying Republicans, it's not something he really needs at this point in the election. On raising money, it certainly is, but I don't think squeezing a couple more bucks out of small dollar donors is a solution to a problem the Trump campaign might have. The bottom line, I think the way the Trump campaign sees this is that anybody who has particularly strong feelings about what happened in the 2020 election or on January 6th has probably long since made up their mind on who they're voting for in this election. That said, the continued, in his mind, targeting of Trump by the DOJ is something that animates him personally. So while I don't think we've heard the last of this from Trump, kind of mentioning it when he's in the mood to do so, I don't see attacks on Smith or relitigating this issue as a key part of the Trump strategy in these last 33 days, Hallie.
Garrett Haake, live for us there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's get to some big news from the FDA affecting anybody who is on or who wants to go on those popular weight loss medicines, because the agency says there's no shortage anymore of 2 of them, Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for losing weight. They're both made by Eli Lilly, which tells us tonight, while all doses of Mounjaro and Zepbound are available, the supply chain is complex, especially for refrigerated medicines. And there may be many reasons why a particular pharmacy does not have a particular dose of the medicine in stock. Ann Thompson is joining us now. What's so interesting here is that when there was a declared shortage, right, of these drugs, some pharmacies were allowed to compound them, as it's called, basically kind of create their own version, right, like a sort of different version of it.
think of it as a knockoff.
Now.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the knockoff version, right? That can't happen now, right?
Yep, exactly. In fact, the manufacturers of those compounded drugs, Hallie, are supposed to stop making them right away. They have a grace period to fulfill all their orders for the next 60 days of those drugs that contain a hormone called GLP-1. That is a hormone that curbs your appetite. They can fill all those orders that are in the pipeline, but after that, they're supposed to stop. And if they don't stop, they could face FDA regulatory action. There is some talk tonight that maybe some of those manufacturers will try to get around it by adding another element to the drugs, like let's say a vitamin to the GLP-1 formula, and try to get around it that way. But there's no definitive word, Hallie.
So what does this mean for the people who are trying to get their hands on some of these medicines, the end of these shortages?
Well, what it means is if you are going to get your hands on the brand name drugs, you're going to have to pay brand name prices. Let me give you an example. Zepbound, a 1-month supply, lists for $1,059.87. That's for a 1-month supply. Think about that. Hers, which is one of those compounded drugs, a 1-month supply costs about $200. Now, earlier this summer, Eli Lilly responded to the criticism about the high prices by offering cheaper versions of Zepbound, anywhere from $3.49 to $3.99 to $5.49 a month. However, it doesn't come the injection doesn't come prepared. You have to fill up the syringe yourself and then inject it into yourself. So that's the cheaper version of it.
Real quick, and we showed Ozempic on the graphic there. Is Ozempic, that's separate, because that's not an Eli Lilly drug,
That's right. That's made by a company called Novo Nordisk. And they are trying to ramp up supply, obviously, because the demand is so great, but no word yet on when that may come off the list.
All right, Ann Thompson, we're glad to have you as we look at that list there. A lot of interest, a lot of attention on these drugs. Ann, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We got a lot more to get to here on the show, including new comments from President Biden about that port strike that is coming just ahead of the election season and just ahead of the holiday shopping season, too. He says they're making progress. So what does that actually look like? Plus, Tesla's Cybertruck facing its 5th recall in less than a year. What it means for a pickup, quote unquote, that's as controversial as it is bold. President Biden says tonight he thinks there's progress in talks over that port worker strike. How much progress? Quote, we will find out soon. So upshot, I guess, is that it's still kind of TBD as those dock workers hit day 3, which means container ships pulling into ports from Maine to Texas cannot unload. And that longer term, we could see shortages of everything from fruits and veggies to car parts. But not toilet paper, folks. And yet, look at this. It is pandemic vibes at some stores with TP flying off the shelves. Here's the thing. Experts say the port strike will have exactly 0 impact on toilet paper. We make most of what we need right here at home. You don't have to go out and clear out the Costco, okay? But that is maybe not the case, this shortage issue for things like bananas, as CNBC's Pippa Stevens explains.
Hi, Hallie. Well, more than half of container trade comes into the 14 ports where workers are striking, threatening to snarl supply chains and potentially raise prices. Looking at consumer goods specifically, nearly 100% of tobacco and pharmaceutical imports come through East and Gulf Coast ports. Beverages and spirits, meat, fish, and produce all seeing more than 70% of deliveries through the impacted ports, with apparel, vehicles, and furniture at more than a half, according to Wolf Research. Now, perishable goods is one area to really watch because they go bad, so companies were not able to stock up ahead of time. We import about half of our fruit, and half of that goes through the impacted ports. 70% of seafood by value comes in through the East and Gulf Coast ports, according to the American Farm Bureau. And we import about 1/3 of our wine, with 72% by value coming in, again, through those ports. Now, going a bit deeper on fruit specifically, 90% of imported cherries pass through the Gulf and East Coast, 82% of hot peppers, and 3/4 of bananas, which is the most popular fruit in the United States. Now, soft commodities are also in focus, given that 80% of sugar, coffee, and cocoa imports pass through the impacted ports. And we might not see that much of an impact on sugar prices, given imports are a small portion of overall consumption. But we import nearly 100% of our coffee and cocoa, and supplies were tight ahead of the work stoppage. Now, duration of the strike is the most important thing, since that will ultimately determine how much of an impact there is. Economists say the 3 days we've had so far won't really move the needle, but if this stretches on for weeks or even months, that will certainly change. Hallie?
Pippa Stevens, thank you very much. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's that polarizing people mover, the Cybertruck. Love it or hate it. It is now facing its 5th safety recall this year alone, as we learned today. That is just the latest problem now facing a Tesla truck. Some say it was built more to make a statement than to hit the road. Here's Tom Costello.
Forget a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
It drives great, man. It drives awesome. That's why I love it.
This is the most eye-catching vehicle you'll see on America's roads today. Love it or hate it, Tesla's Cybertruck, described by CEO Elon Musk as what Blade Runner would have driven, is the latest status symbol on 4 wheels. With stars from Kim Kardashian to Pharrell, Lady Gaga all getting behind the wheel. What's the appeal?
As ridiculous as the Cybertruck may look, it gives it a definite cool factor.
The Cybertruck was first introduced as a futuristic concept car back in 2019. It hit the road late last year, but a string of safety issues led to 5 recalls in just 1 year. The latest, a problem with the rear-view camera, which, according to safety officials, took up to 8 seconds to boot up once it shifted into reverse. For context, the government says that needs to happen within 2 seconds. The recall notice says the delay could increase the risk of a collision. The other recalls, failing windshield wipers, hard-to-read warning lights, parts literally falling off, and then the issue with the car's accelerator.
This slid up.
A viral video shows the pedal can get stuck to the floor once it's pushed all the way down. Tesla markets the Cybertruck as a total workhorse, competing against the likes of other major brand pickups. Tesla even boasts a towing capacity, the equivalent, it says, of an average African elephant. But some experts say this isn't the truck you want to show up in to a job site.
I can't see many construction workers swapping their F-150s or their Silverados or their Rams for a Cybertruck, unless you want to make a big statement.
This latest recall over the rear-view camera, now resolved, Tesla says via a software update sent out to nearly 30,000 Cybertruck owners. We asked Tesla about these safety issues, but haven't heard back. But while the Cybertruck might be great at turning heads, some experts say that's all it's good for.
Does the world need a Cybertruck? No. Would it be a more boring place without it? Probably.
Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Let's get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, that typhoon we told you about in Taiwan is actually making landfall today. Winds gusting at more than 100 miles an hour. Look at this. I want to show you. That's a store counter just getting totally blown away. At least 2 people have died. The island shut down for the 2nd day in a row with hundreds of flights grounded. Look at that car. Financial markets have been closed there. Number 2, California is investigating a possible case of bird flu in a dairy worker. Officials say they had contact with infected cattle. They got pink eye, but they're expected to be okay. More than a dozen farm workers have been infected with bird flu this year. Number 3, the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program can move forward, according to a judge today. That's after multiple Republican-led states filed a lawsuit against that aid package, calling it illegal. The judge says those states don't really have standing to sue in Georgia. The case will be transferred to Missouri, so likely still a legal fight ahead. Number 4, kindergarten vaccination rates dipped last year, according to new federal data. The number of kindergartners getting exemptions is the highest it has ever been. It means about 80,000 kids are not getting their shots. Experts say that helps explain the rise in cases of things like whooping cough and measles. Number 5, guess who the new Rookie of the Year is for the WNBA? Who else? Caitlin Clark. Come on, right? She says she's incredibly honored. She got 66 of the 67 first-place votes. But you know who the other vote went to? Also somebody who's amazing, Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky. Of course, Caitlin Clark set the single-season league record for assists and led all rookies in points, assists, steals, and minutes. That's a lot. Coming up later in the show, some California locals got a big surprise on their way to the mailbox. It was gone. What we're learning from new surveillance footage. Plus, a man in Germany now being monitored for a very rare and contagious virus. We'll talk about the risk of an outbreak and where it's the highest. Police stopped a man just minutes before he tried to set a friend's house on fire. How an Uber driver saved the day. But first, an outbreak of the very scary, super contagious, super deadly Marburg virus now has Rwanda starting vaccine trials. That's after 11 people died in an outbreak there. That number's been going up all week. Most cases are in medical workers right now, but Germany had a scare because somebody who treated a patient in Rwanda made his way to Germany and got sick. Officials say he's negative still, but they're monitoring it. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. So, Dr. John, the WHO says it's mostly Rwanda that should be concerned here and to some degree the rest of the region. So is the risk level fairly low for Americans at this point?
And Hallie, it is fairly low right now. And if you look at it, and what the World Health Organization is saying is that nationally it's very high. Regionally, it's high, but outside of that area, it's a low risk right now. And when it comes to this virus, like you mentioned, it's a very deadly virus. Its fatality rate can be anywhere from 20 to 90%, depending on the outbreak. And in this particular one, seems to be around 30%. But even though it's contagious, it's a bit harder to catch than most viruses you think of because this is a contact contagion. In other words, you have to be in contact with body fluids that have this virus in them, and then you're at risk for catching it, which is why this person in Germany who had been taking care of the sick, they're extra concerned with, Hallie, and they're doing the right thing by isolating them.
What sticks out to you the most about this outbreak? What is the thing that's sort of catching your attention here?
I think the thing that sticks out the most is how quickly it's spreading in that regional area and how we're worried about it getting to other areas. So the good thing is they're watching these areas. We're getting more notification here in the U.S. to do the same thing. On the bad side of it, this is an outbreak that's happening in that area and could certainly spread to other areas. So we need to be wary of it. We need to pay attention, and hopefully it doesn't go much beyond where it is right now.
Good advice, Dr. John Torres. Thank you.
You bet.
NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our southern bureau, some haze is making its way into Atlanta after that chemical plant fire about 25 miles away. We've been telling you about it, right? The fire is out, but that chlorine smell could apparently last through the weekend. Emergency service officials say the air quality is safe right now, but they're still telling people to limit stuff that they do outside. Also in our Southern Bureau, police in Florida are crediting an Uber driver for stopping a potential arsonist. So the passenger is the person you see getting arrested right here. He apparently confessed to the driver that he was planning to burn down his friend's house over the fact that the friend owed him like $100, he says. So the Uber driver drops off the passenger, but then calls police, who found this guy with a detergent bottle full of gasoline, a lighter, and a knife, they say. He is now facing several charges. And out of our Western Bureau, people in one California neighborhood walked out to check their mail, only to find their mailboxes missing. So, this is surveillance video. Someone's just like unbolting the mailboxes from the ground and then putting them in their truck. Who are they? Still don't know. Why'd they do it? Still don't know. Police are on the case. Also tonight, a popular TikTok star is being charged with second-degree murder and obstruction in the death of a Louisiana therapist. We first told you about this story last night, remember? Terrion Ishmael Thomas. You probably know him as Mr. Prada. That's his TikTok name. He's been in police custody since Tuesday. He was accused of driving the stolen car of a 69-year-old man who was found dead on the side of the highway this weekend. According to an arrest warrant, this is new information coming into us today. Police searched Thomas's home and said they found evidence that there was some kind of a violent fight inside. NBC News has reached out to the victim's family and the management team listed on his profile for comment. No word yet, Maya Eaglin, who's joining us now, right, on whether he had a lawyer. The court and sheriff's officials didn't know right away.
Yeah, that's right. We've been trying to reach out, but we haven't heard back. As you mentioned, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Department charging Thomas today with second-degree murder in connection to the death of 69-year-old William Nicholas Abraham. Officials are saying that they do not believe this was a premeditated crime, and also there's no information right now on if there was a connection between the two prior to this crime. Sheriff's Department sharing new information about that investigation today. We're seeing that investigators actually searched Thomas Thomas's apartment and found a significant amount of blood and multiple sharp objects and other weapons, according to that affidavit. Witnesses also saying that they saw Thomas dragging a suspicious tarp outside of his apartment. And Thomas was listed as a person of interest in this case on Monday. And that's because officials say he was the last person seen using the victim's car. Thomas actually fled to Dallas, Texas, some 400 miles away, where he was arrested and is still in police custody. But this case will actually be transferred back to the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Department. We haven't heard from Thomas or any of his representatives, as you just mentioned, Hallie, but we did get a statement from the East Baton Rouge Sheriff that says in part, quote, "This is an ongoing investigation that will take time to gather further evidence. I hope that this arrest may bring some closure and assurance to friends and family." So again, new information today, answering some of those hundreds of comments in Mr. Prada's TikTok, but we're still waiting to hear for further updates in this investigation, and we'll keep you posted as it all unfolds. Hallie?
Maya Eaglin, thanks for being on this again for another day. Appreciate it. Still ahead, a hit show the world has refocused on the Menendez brothers murder case. But could it get them out of their lifetime sentences? So when is something sustainable and when is it a scam? That's the questions for companies trying to capitalize on composting, with this whole big push now to compost to help the environment. In fact, starting next week in New York, it's going to be mandatory to compost, in the city at least. But for some businesses selling so-called countertop composters, there's maybe a catch. They don't actually compost anything. Here's Vicki Wynn.
Composting going fully curbside for all New Yorkers soon, meaning the city will pick up food scraps separate from trash and recycling. Why? Well, aside from fighting the war on rats.
But the rats don't run the city. We do.
There's an environmental reason, too. Food waste emits a massive amount of methane gas from landfills, the equivalent of more than 13 million gas-powered cars on the road for a year, according to the EPA, impacting global warming. But less than 1 in 10 households in the U.S. have access to such curbside programs, about half of which are in California, where it's now required for towns to provide organic waste collection. So if you're trying to be conscious about your footprint, what do you do with your food waste?
Really, it's a problem that starts in your kitchen.
A number of companies,
it's a convenient alternative to composting,
trying to fill the gap, like Lomi.
Lomi can compost your food waste, all at the push of a button.
And Vitamix.
Meat, bones, pits, shells. The new grinding system has the ability to process all of that into a really fine, nutrient-rich soil amendment.
Advertising these so-called countertop composters. And while Vitamix doesn't say on its own website that it's device compost, product descriptions at retailers like Crate & Barrel say it creates garden-ready compost. But experts disagree.
They're not, totally bad. They're just not composters.
Soil scientists like Virginia Lamb say the products instead simply dehydrate the food waste and grind it up. While that can help deodorize your food scraps, calling it composting, the natural process of decomposing organic matter, is a stretch.
Well, it might seem like a minor distinction to make, but I think it's kind of misleading as to what people think they're accomplishing by doing it.
And the U.S. Composting Council, an organization that promotes composting nationally, agrees, calling out the products in a public letter, quote, "Marketing these devices as composters is confusing to the public and damaging to the composting industry." The question is when confusing crosses a legal line.
If a company's advertising a product as one thing and it is not that thing, then they may be liable under a state's consumer protection laws.
Vitamix tells NBC News its products are not composters, but food waste recyclers, and that it's getting out of the countertop waste business altogether, saying it's made the strategic decision to exit the category by the end of the year. Lomi didn't respond to our request for comment, but told the New York Times in a story on the topic that its device produced pre-compost, or a nutrient-rich soil amendment.
The soil conditions for plants to grow require the right balance of nitrogen, phosphorus, acidity.
President of food recycling company Mill, Harry Tannenbaum, says the difference for you, the consumer, is that putting a big pile of the material from these dehydrators directly onto your plants at home could cause the soil to rot and attract pests when watered.
One thing we are incredibly clear about is that what comes out of Mill isn't compost.
And after grinding down your food waste, Mill even offers a program to have your grounds picked up and sent to farms for things like chicken feed, where it could be more helpful.
In markets where cities don't have curbside programs, we've been able to find farmers who are super excited to tap into these nutrients and get them back to farms.
Recycling your food is a great first step, but sometimes you got to get your hands dirty to see the true fruits of your labor. Vicki Nguyen, NBC News.
Well, thanks to Vicki for that. Still to come, some breaking news right now. The L.A. District Attorney, as we speak, this is a live look, giving an update on the Menendez brothers case. We've got our reporter who's watching this. We're going to come back to it right after we sneak in this quick break. So as we speak, the Los Angeles District Attorney is giving an update on the Menendez brothers murder case, saying in just the last couple of minutes that his team has a moral and an ethical obligation to review new evidence given to them. This big question now, of course, with all the attention on this case, given that new Netflix series about the brothers, could this mean a break in the case? The whole thing's getting international attention, with the show's co-creator even saying the brothers should send him flowers because of all the growing interest here. Remember, the Menendez brothers are behind bars for killing their parents in the 90s. They say they were being sexually abused by their father and acted out of self-defense. The timing here is significant because there's a hearing scheduled for next month as the brothers challenge their life sentences. Dana Griffin is following this from L.A. There was this question like, what's this district attorney going to come out and say? Tell us more about this, right? Does this mean like a reopening of the case? What's going on?
Essentially, Hallie, so District Attorney George Gascon just came out to say that they have, in fact, gotten that new evidence, which includes allegations from a former member of Menudo, the Puerto Rican boy band, who claims that Jose Menendez, the father of Eric and Lyle, drugged and raped him back in the 80s. There's also new evidence of a letter that Eric wrote his cousin months before the killings to express that he was being sexually abused. So this all boils down to, was self-defense the proper defense for these two boys at the time, 19 and 21, and could this information have changed the outcome of the jury's decision? And so that's why you have the DA say that they are looking at this, they are going to do their due diligence, and there's a few things that could happen here. They could be resentenced, which means that they could walk out of prison, they could spend more time in prison but ultimately be released, or they could get a new trial. So that hearing that's scheduled in late November, that's probably going to give us more information about what the timeline could be for potential resentencing. But the DA has said specifically that he has not made a decision on whether or not this evidence is factual. He says that his team is looking at it, and he will ultimately, Hallie, make the decision in this case on whether or not to grant them a potential another look at this case and potentially vacate that 1996 sentence.
Which is so, I mean, like the amount of interest on this case, this captured global attention when it happened, and it is recapturing so much of that attention now. You've got the Netflix thing we mentioned, that Peacock docuseries, which has been a part of this as well. How much does that play into some of the dynamics here?
It's huge. I mean, this is one of the most sensational Hollywood murder stories of our generation. Two boys who murdered their parents in cold blood, according to prosecutors. Now, these boys have not denied that they killed their parents, but the question has been the why. And even during their first trial, their defense attorney said that you've got to look at why two kids would kill their parents while they sat on the couch with a shotgun multiple times. So this has reopened just the intrigue on the Menendez brothers as to why this happened. You know, some people said that the killings had to do with greed, but these kids testified at one point that they were sexually and mentally abused by their parents, specifically their father, Jose Menendez. And they said that their mother was complicit and that she didn't stop it. And so this new evidence, the new information that has come out during the Netflix series. There's also going to be a new Netflix documentary dropping on October 7th. Then you've got the Peacock documentary. It is just exposing a whole nother narrative around what happened. And are these brothers victims? Hallie?
Dana Griffin, live in L.A. Thank you very much. That does it for this hour. I'll see you Sunday on the Nightly News. Back here Monday on NBC News Now. More coverage picks up right now. We are coming on the air with hope fading fast to find survivors from Hurricane Helene, now the deadliest storm to hit the mainland of the U.S. in nearly 20 years. President Biden is in Georgia now, and we're live in two of the hardest hit states with more as rescue teams get deeper into the areas hardest hit. Also tonight, the vice president making a play for Republicans in a Wisconsin town that's the birthplace of the GOP, as she's slamming former President Trump for a policy split from a surprising source, his own wife. We've just heard from Mr. Trump in Michigan. We're going to tell you what he said in just a sec. Plus, the L.A. District Attorney giving an update on the high-profile Menendez murder case everybody's talking about again because of that new Netflix series. So, could what he says help free the Menendez brothers? Then, new trouble for Tesla, why the Cybertruck's facing another round of recalls. Why a lot of folks love it anyway, and others just love to hate it. And so-called countertop composters may have one catch: not actually doing any composting. So is it sustainability or is it a scam? We're getting into it a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air with hope starting to fade down in North Carolina and Tennessee, even as the number of people killed by Helene keeps going up. Now 215 victims. That means it is the deadliest mainland hurricane in the U.S. since Katrina. President Biden in Georgia in just the last hour, taking a look at the devastation there, trying to reassure folks that the federal government is there to help and that will be there to help. Watch.
I want you to know I see you, I hear you, I agree with you, and I promise you we have your back.
Short term and in the long one, struggling here. Earlier today, he was out in Florida. This is what active recovery looks like there. Homes flattened, barely left standing in some instances. Not one of those storms, Hurricane Ian, Irma, Ike, not Superstorm Sandy, has been as deadly over the course of the last 20 years as Helene, and the number killed could still go up. On top of that, across the southeast, nearly 1 million people are without power. Georgia, North and South Carolina in particular, struggling with a lot of outages, leaving people isolated in communities without electricity, without cell service, in a lot of cases with barely any food and water either. Watch.
The water was all the way up to our windows, and our neighbors were flooded out. The poor little lady next door, she was still in her house trying to mop out water. We have got to rebuild everything.
It was unexpected. We've seen no help through here.
Morgan Chesky is live for us tonight in Tennessee. Sam Brock in North Carolina as we move forward with our team coverage. So, Sam, let me start with you. We know that it seems like one of the devastating headlines today is hope fading fast to find more survivors. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So, Hallie, there was definitely a foreshadowing coming in today that the number of fatalities for Buncombe County, where I am on the outskirts of Asheville, was going to go up. It did go up from 61 yesterday to 72 today. This is the largest sort of epicenter of fatalities so far anywhere in the storm zone. What was perhaps more surprising, if not eye-opening, was what we heard from the sheriff about an hour ago when he said there's also 200 missing. 200. How do you define that, right? Because for days, people have been asking our local officials here, are we talking about welfare checks or people that you genuinely believe cannot be found right now? And he said, folks are asking like there's a finite amount of people that could be missing or a sentence with a period at the end of that. It's not how it works. We're getting communications coming in every single day that are fluid in nature. People are going and knocking on doors, and essentially there are communication breakdowns. I suspect there are language barriers that are playing into this, Hallie. Also, they're not entirely sure, these officials that are going door to door, how many people live in each household, and there are unhoused residents of the town and of Asheville and of Buncombe County that people aren't necessarily sure what their permanent residence or regular residence would be. So tallying up these figures becomes an exercise in futility. Still, though, just to hear 200, obviously a very large number. Over my shoulder, you're looking at a bridge here. Again, we're on the main road going from one of the local towns here out to Asheville. Downtown Asheville is in that direction. There is what appears to be a structure, likely a home, sitting on top of the bridge. No one has been able to get back and forth here for days. And this is just emblematic of what so many areas right now are dealing with on the ground. And then as you head up into the mountains, access is an issue, cellular communication is an issue, and we don't really know, Hallie, how many people are actually missing.
You talk with the fire chief in one community about the timeline here, because that is the question for so many people. How long is it going to take for them to be able to function, even to a degree, given the picture that you've just laid out here, Sam? What is the sense of that? Do we even, can we even get our arms around that yet?
Not really. The span that residents have been told are gleaming from their conversations is anywhere between 6 weeks and 6 months just to get water back. And if you want to think about that for a second, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, the basic things, that many of us take for granted, people right now are discovering they cannot do. Even flushing a toilet and trying to find one that functions, right? It's become a major issue. I did speak with the fire chief today to say the piping itself needs to be replaced, put back in new piping, and then roads restored over that. How long is that going to take? Here was his response.
I was born and raised here. And this is, I don't think there's a word to describe it. I don't know how long this is going to take.
If there is a silver lining to all of this, I can't tell you how many people I've seen today, Hallie. Random strangers in groups in motorcycle clubs, in the Cajun Navy, driving around with big boxes of water and paper towels and anything you can imagine strapped to their trucks and their cars and their ATVs, distributing it to as many people as they can find. That's the spirit that's here in Western North Carolina, but obviously a lot of questions left unanswered tonight.
Yeah, no kidding. Sam Brock live for us there in Asheville. Thank you. Let me bring in Morgan Chesky, who's live for us in Elizabethton, Tennessee. And Morgan, you had an opportunity, and we see those choppers behind you. You actually got up in the air and saw this devastation from above.
Yeah, Hallie, this is an operation that's been ongoing essentially as soon as the skies cleared up after Helene made its way through here. And we joined the Army National Guard aboard a Black Hawk helicopter. They have been tasked with an incredible mission, and that is to try and service all of these communities in North Carolina and here in Tennessee that have been cut off as a result of so many roads and bridges being washed away. We made multiple stops today. Our first was in a community here in Carter County known as Elk Mills. Hallie, you see the pictures, you see the video. When you land in a place that has been cut off and you are surrounded by devastation in every direction, it is heartbreaking, it is humbling, it is almost every emotion. I spoke to one woman there who says that 2 crucial bridges were washed away. The sight of volunteers and these crew members offloading their helicopter with food, with water, with supplies, medical supplies as well, almost brought her to tears. I think she was incredibly touched because they are just a tiny community, and yet there is a Herculean effort to reach each and every one of them here to make sure they have everything they need. Hallie, keep in mind, just a helicopter's load of supplies, that gives them enough hope to buy another day or two maybe in the condition that they're currently in, while crews race to reestablish roads and dump dirt and gravel to get anything they can down on the ground to allow some sort of vehicle to move back into these mountains. One striking thing as we were flying over this area, Hallie, was that these beautiful green Tennessee hills just jump out at you, and yet they partially contributed to the devastation we've seen in that when you have 30 inches of rain falling in such a short amount of time, all of that water converged in those river valleys, wiping out nearly everything in its path. We flew over one area. You could see a bridge ripped off its foundation and a railroad track that was still submerged. And there are sites like that up and down these valleys here in Tennessee. Another thing that jumped out to me, Hallie, was as we flew over a hillside, you could see almost one whole side of trees snapped over. I asked the pilot, did a tornado recently happen here? He says, no, that is the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, just a telling signal as to how powerful this storm was. It didn't even strike this area as a proper hurricane and it's left such incredible devastation behind here. Hallie?
Morgan Chesky live for us there in Elizabethton, Tennessee. Morgan, thank you. Let me explain what's happening coast to coast, right? Because you've got part of the country now in the Appalachians in recovery mode from all of that flooding and that horrific number of victims from Hurricane Helene. You go out west and you see millions of people facing intense and potentially dangerous heat. You've got heat alerts in effect tonight for tens of millions of people from California to Colorado to New Mexico. We're already seeing new records in some of those spots. Let me bring in Bill Cairns for more on that. I mean, this is a split screen coast to coast, Bill, 2 different types of natural disasters.
Yeah, and this sets off those climate alarms. I mean, this is October. This is what I'm usually talking about the first snow in the mountains and who's going to get their first frost. Usually I'm done showing maps like this that show how many millions of people are under heat warnings. But we got 29 million people, and a lot of people in the Southwest and California are just saying, okay, this has to end eventually, right? I mean, these are all the locations that have a chance of setting record highs today. We had dozens of them from Texas to Oklahoma, Missouri. We just tied the record high in Phoenix. I'm going to touch more on this in a second. Vegas, Reno, Fresno, Palm Springs has a chance of getting up to about 110 today. And let's talk specifically about Phoenix, because this is all-time stuff, not just for Phoenix, but as far as records go across the country. Now we tied it today. We've gone 10 days in a row, each and every day, with a new record high. And during this streak, we set the all-time September high of 117 and the all-time October high of 113. And here's the thing. The forecast calls for record highs through the weekend all the way into the beginning of next week. We may go 16 straight days in a row, Hallie, with record highs in Phoenix. That would be the all-time record for any city in the country. That has never happened before.
So what does this mean for the nexus with the potential for wildfires, Bill, for fire risk?
Oh, this has everyone very fearful. So we already have red flag warnings throughout much of the northern Rockies. And here's the October forecast. Much warmer than normal through the Rockies, throughout all the west, and much drier than normal. So once we start getting those Santa Ana winds, which are expected as in the next month or two, we are very fearful of what the end of this fire season could bring.
Bill Cairns, thank you very much. A lot for you to watch tonight. Appreciate that. We got to get to some breaking news now tonight from Capitol Hill, because Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York is apologizing now after new pictures surfaced of him in blackface. The pictures come from college, when Lawler dressed up as Michael Jackson. He's from one of the swingiest districts in the country, in New York's Hudson Valley. Let me bring in Julie Sirkin, who's joining us now from Battleground, Pennsylvania. I understand we're just getting a statement from the congressman where he's apologizing.
Yeah, he is apologizing, Hallie, but he's also saying he was a super fan of Michael Jackson. He was mentioned in the bio of Michael Jackson. He said, quote, "I am a student of history, and for anyone who takes offense to the photo, I am sorry. All you can do is live and learn, and I appreciate everyone's grace along the way." Again, this is somebody who's saying that it's been well documented in the Daily Beast and other articles that he's such a fan of Michael Jackson. He went to his trials. He danced in his music videos. But, of course, the situation is very different, clearly, by that picture that was obtained by the New York Times, showing him in what appears to be blackface, dressed up as Michael Jackson, as you said, in college, something Lawler is apologizing for. But, man, is it a close race in his district. This is New York District 17. Lawler is one of 5 Republicans trying to hold on to their seats. He's going up against Mondaire Jones. This is a former congressman who split districts after redistricting and is running now against Lawler. We reached out to his office, too. So far, no comment. But, of course, this could be pivotal in Republicans' control. We're trying to hold on to their control of the House come November. And this is something that voters are going to take very seriously, of course, as they are just a 3-point margin between Lawler and Mondaire Jones, of course, within the margin of error. So any bad news is bad news bears for Lawler here.
Yeah, Julie Sirkin, thank you very much for that. A lot to watch on that front, in that race in particular. Thank you. Also in the world of politics, in the next hour or so, we will see Vice President Kamala Harris side by side with one of the most well-known Republicans in America. You see her there, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, one of the most famous Republican last names in this political era, too. Cheney's crossing the aisle to back Harris. You probably know by now, she is no fan of Donald Trump. She voted for his impeachment. She served on the January 6th committee. And she has given the Harris-Walz ticket and congressional Democrats her full-throated endorsement. Now, today's event is interesting. It's in a battleground state. It's in Wisconsin. But not in like a battleground district. Instead, this town of 7,000 is known for one thing: being the birthplace of the Republican Party. You're looking at it right there. It's got the signs up, that little white schoolhouse. 170 years ago, the founders of the GOP held the first meetings here over opposition to a bill that would have expanded slavery. Gabe Gutierrez is where the VP will be speaking, in Ripon, Wisconsin. This is a place that gave Donald Trump 62% of the vote in 2020. Hasn't backed a Democrat since LBJ. It's not like she's going there to flip people in that area necessarily, but she is clearly trying to send a message by standing on this kind of like Republican ground with somebody who's got if not influence in the Republican Party now, at least a last name that at one point had a lot of influence.
Yeah, Hallie, it's quite symbolic, isn't it? Look, she's not trying to get these hardcore Republican voters here. She's going for the moderates with this appearance, and those Nikki Haley voters, those voters that perhaps years ago supported John McCain. I just spoke with one rally goer here who said that he actually voted for Trump back in 2016, but changed his mind once Trump got into office. Those are the types of voters that she is trying to reach right here, Hallie. And you can see it all around me. There's signage that says country over party. That's something you would have heard heard back from John McCain. And Liz Cheney has already endorsed her. But think of the symbolism of this. At the birthplace of the Republican Party, she will stand alongside Vice President Harris in the stage behind me for the first time since offering that endorsement. Again, the Harris campaign is hoping this can make a big difference in key swing states like Wisconsin, where the margins are expected to be so close, Hallie.
What have you heard from Republicans in Ripon there, specifically about Liz Cheney, who, listen, like, she does not represent where the party is. I think she acknowledges that. She knows that. She has been speaking out against Donald Trump early and often.
Yeah, look, and I spoke with a former Republican who's here at this rally. He has one opinion of Liz Cheney. There are others that have a very different opinion of Liz Cheney. And look, we spoke with some Trump supporters earlier today here in Ripon, and they were not pleased with Liz Cheney. They say she doesn't speak for the modern Republican Party, and they are very skeptical that she's even here at all. Take a listen to what they had to say. Do you still consider them to be Republicans?
Mm-mm.
Why?
I feel like you should always be one way and not just follow.
How is anybody going to be able to believe your words and trust what you're going to do?
They're not putting country or party.
And I was referencing there not just Liz Cheney, but other high-profile Republicans like Adam Kinzinger and the son of John McCain as well, others that have come out in support of Kamala Harris. And the Harris campaign has been trotting them out, and they expect to really hit that message over the coming weeks in places here like Wisconsin, and they're hoping they can cut into Trump's lead in some of these deep red counties, and they hope that that can make all the difference in this election, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much. The Harris campaign is also pouncing on something we're hearing from the Trumps. Well, I should say Trump singular, not the former president himself, but the former first lady instead, Melania Trump, who's mostly been out of the spotlight this campaign, right? Until now. That's because she's got a new book out where she describes supporting abortion rights. The Harris campaign calls Mrs. Trump's comments sad, they say. Sadly for the women across America, they say Mrs. Trump's husband firmly disagrees with her. And in this video posted online, watch how Melania Trump uses some language many Democrats use now to make her point about abortion access.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth.
Garrett Hake is in Saginaw, Michigan, where former President Trump was just rallying. Okay, Garrett, we don't hear from Melania Trump often, right? In the instances when we do, it is unusual that she breaks with her husband, and even more unusual that she breaks with him so publicly and on an issue that is so critical, as Democrats see it, to November as this one. Former President Trump definitively does not support what Melania Trump is describing here, abortion as an essential right, as she puts it, to women. So how should we be interpreting this, and what's the move for Melania Trump here? Can't tell if it's just me or if is Garrett's mic muted? Not a Zoom, but we're going to have somebody on his end click a button, and we're going to come back to him. In the meantime, we want to get into some other news that's happening, this time overseas, because tonight we are just learning from the Middle East that some 250 Americans have been evacuated from Lebanon on private American planes. It comes as right now Israel is warning more people to get away from the border as fighting escalates with Hezbollah. At least 9 people are now dead in the capital of Beirut in Israel's deepest attack into Lebanon yet. Let's go to Aaron McLaughlin in Tel Aviv for us. We're also seeing the ground operation, right? The footprint there expand in Lebanon. Tell us more about where things stand.
Yeah, that ground operation expanding, Hallie. Today, the Israeli military ordering the evacuation of 25 Lebanese towns and villages north of the Litani River. Some of those towns and villages 25 miles north of the Litani River. And the Litani River is significant because that marks the border of the buffer zone as decided by that UN Security Council resolution in the wake of the Israel-Lebanon war of 2006. So it's significant that Israel today signaling that it's going to be pushing back that boundary. Meanwhile, there are these clashes that are going on inside Lebanese towns and villages near the border, according to Israeli media reports. Clashes between Hezbollah fighters and Israeli soldiers. Those clashes turning deadly. The Israeli military today announcing at least one Israeli soldier was killed in those clashes, a paratrooper. That in addition to 8 Israeli soldiers that were killed in 2 separate incidents yesterday, which leaves the question, where is all of this going? We just heard from the Israeli military spokesperson announce that Hezbollah fired some 230 rockets toward Israel. And remember, the stated goal now of this war, per the Israeli cabinet, is the safe return of some 60,000 Israeli civilians to their homes in the north. At what point will that objective be reached? The U.S. has long expressed its concern about the potential for Operation Creep, and today we are hearing that the Israeli military is seeming to expand that ground operation further north. Hallie.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you very much for that. I want to bring it back here to home now, back to the political trail, where Garrett Haake is rejoining us now in Saginaw, Michigan. Just give me tell me you can hear me.
I hear you, Hallie,
there you
and
are.
I'll pick up where I left off.
Well, because here's what I would say. There's one interesting thing. There's a lot of interesting things about this, but especially if this was an olive branch to try to win over moderates who have a position that is more favorable towards abortion access, does it run the risk of turning off the people who back former President Trump because of his position to restrict abortion access?
Hallie, I think this is a case where people like you and me often read into strategy where there is none. I think what is more likely to be the case here with this particular incident is that this is a position that the publication of it now will probably help Melania Trump sell more books. And I think that this is really about a difference between her and her husband. And I think perhaps the most interesting part of it, at least politically, is that Melania Trump still very much supports Donald Trump. Now, we've not seen her on the trail. She's not been particularly outspoken in this particular cycle, but she's made it clear she's supporting him, will vote for him, and she's said that in interviews as recently as last night. If anything, I think these comments from Melania Trump may provide some degree of a permission structure to other women who feel similarly about abortion, but also feel like there are other issues that are more important and that will animate their votes for Trump. We've heard that from some voters on the ground here in Michigan just today, although notably men, not women.
One thing that former President Trump did not bring up where you were was anything about Jack Smith, somebody for whom we know there is no love lost on the part of Donald Trump, especially with that breaking news that you covered last night on some of the new information, the new evidence we're just now seeing that prosecutors allege in the election interference case against him. Was it interesting to you that he's not trying to sort of fan that flame against Jack Smith again?
I found it a little bit surprising, only because in the past, fanning that flame has been good for Donald Trump in rallying Republicans to his side and in helping him raise money. I think on the latter, the idea of rallying Republicans, it's not something he really needs at this point in the election. On raising money, it certainly is, but I don't think squeezing a couple more bucks out of small dollar donors is a solution to a problem the Trump campaign might have. The bottom line, I think the way the Trump campaign sees this, is that anybody who has particularly strong feelings about what happened in the 2020 election or on January 6th has probably long since made up their mind on who they're voting for in this election. That said, the continued, in his mind, targeting of Trump by the DOJ is something that animates him personally. So while I don't think we've heard the last of this from Trump, kind of mentioning it when he's in the mood to do so, I don't see attacks on Smith or relitigating this issue as a key part of the Trump strategy in these last 33 days, Hallie.
Garrett Haake, live for us there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's get to some big news from the FDA affecting anybody who is on or who wants to go on those popular weight loss medicines, because the agency says there's no shortage anymore of 2 of them, Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for losing weight. They're both made by Eli Lilly, which tells us tonight, while all doses of Mounjaro and Zepbound are available, the supply chain is complex, especially for refrigerated medicines. And there may be many reasons why a particular pharmacy does not have a particular dose of the medicine in stock. Ann Thompson is joining us now. What's so interesting here is that when there was a declared shortage, right, of these drugs, some pharmacies were allowed to compound them, as it's called, basically kind of create their own version, right, like a sort of different version of it. That can't happen now.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the knockoff version, right? That can't happen now, right?
Yep, exactly. In fact, the manufacturers of those compounded drugs, Hallie, are supposed to stop making them right away. They have a grace period to fulfill all their orders for the next 60 days of those drugs that contain a hormone called GLP-1. That is a hormone that curbs your appetite. They can fill all those orders that are in the pipeline, but after that, they're supposed to stop. And if they don't stop, they could face FDA regulatory action. There is some talk tonight that maybe some of those manufacturers will try to get around it by adding another element to the drugs, like, let's say, a vitamin to the GLP-1 formula, and try to get around it that way, but there's no definitive word, Hallie.
So what does this mean for the people who are trying to get their hands on some of these medicines, the end of these shortages?
Well, what it means is if you are going to get your hands on the brand name drugs, you're going to have to pay brand name prices. Let me give you an example. Zepbound, a 1-month supply, lists for $1,059.87. That's for a 1-month supply. Think about that. Hers, which is one of those compounded drugs, a 1-month supply costs about $200. Now, earlier this summer, Eli Lilly responded to the criticism about the high prices by offering cheaper versions of Zepbound, anywhere from $3.49 to $3.99 to $5.49 a month. However, it doesn't come the injection doesn't come prepared. You have to fill up the syringe yourself and then inject it into yourself. So that's the cheaper version of it.
Real quick, and we showed Ozempic on the graphic there. Is Ozempic, that's separate, because that's not an Eli Lilly drug, right?
That's right. That's made by a company called Novo Nordisk. And they are trying to ramp up supply, obviously, because the demand is so great, but no word yet on when that may come off the list.
All right, Ann Thompson, we're glad to have you as we look at that list there. A lot of interest, a lot of attention on these drugs. Ann, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We got a lot more to get to here on the show, including new comments from President Biden about that port strike that is coming just ahead of the election season and just ahead of the holiday shopping season, too. He says they're making progress. So what does that actually look like? Plus, Tesla's Cybertruck facing its 5th recall in less than a year. What it means for a pickup, quote unquote, that's as controversial as it is bold. President Biden says tonight he thinks there's progress in talks over that port worker strike. How much progress? Quote, we will find out soon. So upshot, I guess, is that it's still kind of TBD as those dock workers hit day 3, which means container ships pulling into ports from Maine to Texas cannot unload. And that longer term, we could see shortages of everything from fruits and veggies to car parts. But not toilet paper, folks. And yet, look at this. It is pandemic vibes at some stores with TP flying off the shelves. Here's the thing. Experts say the port strike will have exactly 0 impact on toilet paper. We make most of what we need right here at home. You don't have to go out and clear out the Costco, okay? But that is maybe not the case, this shortage issue for things like bananas, as CNBC's Pippa Stevens explains.
Hi, Hallie. Well, more than half of container trade comes into the 14 ports where workers are striking, threatening to snarl supply chains and potentially raise prices. Looking at consumer goods specifically, nearly 100% of tobacco and pharmaceutical imports come through East and Gulf Coast ports. Beverages and spirits, meat, fish, and produce all seeing more than 70% of deliveries through the impacted ports, with apparel, vehicles, and furniture at more than a half, according to Wolf Research. Now, perishable goods is one area to really watch because they go bad, so companies were not able to stock up ahead of time. We import about half of our fruit, and half of that goes through the impacted ports. 70% of seafood by value comes in through the East and Gulf Coast ports, according to the American Farm Bureau, and we import about 1/3 of our wine, with 72% by value coming in, again, through those ports. Now, going a bit deeper on fruit specifically, 90% of imported cherries pass through the Gulf and East Coast, 82% of hot peppers, and 3/4 of bananas, which is the most popular fruit in the United States. Now, soft commodities are also in focus, given that 80% of sugar, coffee, and cocoa imports pass through the impacted ports. And we might not see that much of an impact on sugar prices, given imports are a small portion of overall consumption. But we import nearly 100% of our coffee and cocoa, and supplies were tight ahead of the work stoppage. Now, duration of the strike is the most important thing, since that will ultimately determine how much of an impact there is. Economists say the 3 days we've had so far won't really move the needle, but if this stretches on for weeks or even months, that will certainly change. Hallie?
Pippa Stevens, thank you very much. To tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's that polarizing people mover, the Cybertruck. Love it or hate it. It is now facing its 5th safety recall this year alone, as we learned today. That is just the latest problem now facing a Tesla truck. Some say it was built more to make a statement than to hit the road. Here's Tom Costello.
Forget a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
It drives great, man. It drives awesome. That's why I love it.
This is the most eye-catching vehicle you'll see on America's roads today. Love it or hate it, Tesla's Cybertruck, described by CEO Elon Musk as what Blade Runner would have driven, is the latest status symbol on 4 wheels. With stars from Kim Kardashian to Pharrell, Lady Gaga, all getting behind the wheel. What's the appeal?
As ridiculous as the Cybertruck may look, it gives it a definite cool factor.
The Cybertruck was first introduced as a futuristic concept car back in 2019. It hit the road late last year, but a string of safety issues led to 5 recalls in just 1 year. The latest, a problem with the rear-view camera, which, according to safety officials, took up to 8 seconds to boot up once it shifted into reverse. For context, the government says that needs to happen within 2 seconds. The recall notice says the delay could increase the risk of a collision. The other recalls, failing windshield wipers, hard-to-read warning lights, parts literally falling off, and then the issue with the car's accelerator.
This slid up.
A viral video shows the pedal can get stuck to the floor once it's pushed all the way down. Tesla markets the Cybertruck as a total workhorse, competing against the likes of other major brand pickups. Tesla even boasts a towing capacity, the equivalent, it says, of an average African elephant. But some experts say this isn't the truck you want to show up in to a job site.
I can't see many construction workers swapping their F-150s or their Silverados or their Rams for a Cybertruck, unless you want to make a big statement.
This latest recall over the rear-view camera, now resolved, Tesla says, via a software update sent out to nearly 30,000 Cybertruck owners. We asked Tesla about these safety issues, but haven't heard back. But while the Cybertruck might be great at turning heads, some experts say that's all it's good for.
Does the world need a Cybertruck? No. Would it be a more boring place without it? Probably.
Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Let's get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, that typhoon we told you about in Taiwan is actually making landfall today. Winds gusting at more than 100 miles an hour. Look at this. I want to show you. That's a store counter just getting totally blown away. At least 2 people have died. The island shut down for the 2nd day in a row with hundreds of flights grounded. Look at that car. Financial markets have been closed there. Number 2, California is investigating a possible case of bird flu in a dairy worker. Officials say they had contact with infected cattle. They got pink eye, but they're expected to be okay. More than a dozen farm workers have been infected with bird flu this year. Number 3, the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program can move forward, according to a judge today. That's after multiple Republican-led states filed a lawsuit against that aid package, calling it illegal. The judge says those states don't really have standing to sue in Georgia. The case will be transferred to Missouri, so likely still a legal fight ahead. Number 4, kindergarten vaccination rates dipped last year, according to new federal data. The number of kindergartners getting exemptions is the highest it has ever been. It means about 80,000 kids are not getting their shots. Experts say that helps explain the rise in cases of things like whooping cough and measles. Number 5, guess who the new Rookie of the Year is for the WNBA? Who else? Caitlin Clark. Come on, right? She says she's incredibly honored. She got 66 of the 67 first-place votes. But you know who the other vote went to? Also somebody who's amazing, Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky. Of course, Caitlin Clark set the single-season league record for assists and led all rookies in points, assists, steals, and minutes. That's a lot. Coming up later in the show, some California locals got a big surprise on their way to the mailbox. It was gone. what we're learning from new surveillance footage. Plus, a man in Germany now being monitored for a very rare and contagious virus. We'll talk about the risk of an outbreak and where it's the highest. Police stopped a man just minutes before he tried to set a friend's house on fire. How an Uber driver saved the day. But first, an outbreak of the very scary, super contagious, super deadly Marburg virus now has Rwanda starting vaccine trials. That's after 11 people died in an outbreak there. That number's been going up all week. Most cases are in medical workers right now, but Germany had a scare because somebody who treated a patient in Rwanda made his way to Germany and got sick. Officials say he's negative still, but they're monitoring him. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. So, Dr. John, the WHO says it's mostly Rwanda that should be concerned here, and to some degree the rest of the region. So is the risk level fairly low for Americans at this point?
And Hallie, it is fairly low right now. And if you look at it, and what the World Health Organization is saying is that nationally it's very high. Regionally, it's high, but outside of that area, it's a low risk right now. And when it comes to this virus, like you mentioned, it's a very deadly virus. Its fatality rate can be anywhere from 20 to 90%, depending on the outbreak. And in this particular one, seems to be around 30%. But even though it's contagious, it's a bit harder to catch than most viruses you think of, because this is a contact contagion. In other words, you have to be in contact with body fluids that have this virus in them, and then you're at risk for catching it, which is why this person in Germany who had been taking care of the sick, they're extra concerned with, Hallie, and they're doing the right thing by isolating them.
What sticks out to you the most about this outbreak? What is the thing that's sort of catching your attention here?
I think the thing that sticks out the most is how quickly it's spreading in that regional area and how we're worried about it getting to other areas. So the good thing is they're watching these areas. We're getting more notification here in the U.S. to do the same thing. On the bad side of it, this is an outbreak that's happening in that area and could certainly spread to other areas. So we need to be wary of it. We need to pay attention, and hopefully it doesn't go much beyond where it is right now.
Good advice, Dr. John Torres. Thank you.
You bet.
NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our southern bureau, some haze is making its way into Atlanta after that chemical plant fire about 25 miles away. We've been telling you about it, right? The fire is out, but that chlorine smell could apparently last through the weekend. Emergency service officials say the air quality is safe right now, but they're still telling people to limit stuff that they do outside. Also in our Southern Bureau, police in Florida are crediting an Uber driver for stopping a potential arsonist. So the passenger is the person you see getting arrested right here. He apparently confessed to the driver that he was planning to burn down his friend's house over the fact that the friend owed him like $100, he says. So the Uber driver drops off the passenger, but then calls police, who found this guy with a detergent bottle full of gasoline, a lighter, and a knife, they say. He is now facing several charges. And out of our Western Bureau, people in one California neighborhood walked out to check their mail, only to find their mailboxes missing. So, this is surveillance video. Someone's just like unbolting the mailboxes from the ground and then putting them in their truck. Who are they? Still don't know. Why'd they do it? Still don't know. Police are on the case. Also tonight, a popular TikTok star is being charged with second-degree murder and obstruction in the death of a Louisiana therapist. We first told you about this story last night, remember? Terrion Ishmael Thomas. You probably know him as Mr. Prada. That's his TikTok name. He's been in police custody since Tuesday. He was accused of driving the stolen car of a 69-year-old man who was found dead on the side of the highway this weekend. According to an arrest warrant, this is new information coming into us today. Police searched Thomas's home and said they found evidence that there was some kind of a violent fight inside. NBC News has reached out to the victim's family and the management team listed on his profile for comment. No word yet, Maya Eaglin, who's joining us now, right, on whether he had a lawyer. The court and sheriff's officials didn't know right away.
Yeah, that's right. We've been trying to reach out, but we haven't heard back. As you mentioned, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Department charging Thomas today with second-degree murder in connection to the death of 69-year-old William Nicholas Abraham. Officials are saying that they do not believe this was a premeditated crime, and also there's no information right now on if there was a connection between the two prior to this crime. Sheriff's Department sharing new information about that investigation today. We're seeing that investigators actually searched Thomas's apartment and found a significant amount of blood and multiple sharp objects and other weapons, according to that affidavit. Witnesses also saying that they saw Thomas dragging a suspicious tarp outside of his apartment. And Thomas was listed as a person of interest in this case on Monday. And that's because officials say he was the last person seen using the victim's car. Thomas actually fled to Dallas, Texas, some 400 miles away, where he was arrested and is still in police custody. But this case will actually be transferred back to the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Department. We haven't heard from Thomas or any of his representatives, as you just mentioned, Hallie, but we did get a statement from the East Baton Rouge Sheriff that says, in part, quote, "This is an ongoing investigation that will take time to gather further evidence. I hope that this arrest may bring some closure and assurance to friends and family." So again, new information today, answering some of those hundreds of comments in Mr. Prada's TikTok, but we're still waiting to hear for further updates in this investigation, and we'll keep you posted as it all unfolds. Hallie?
Maya Eaglin, thanks for being on this again for another day. Appreciate it. Still ahead, a hit show the world has refocused on the Menendez brothers' murder case. But could it get them out of their lifetime sentences? So when is something sustainable and when is it a scam? That's the questions for companies trying to capitalize on composting, with this whole big push now to compost to help the environment. In fact, starting next week in New York, it's going to be mandatory to compost, in the city at least. But for some businesses selling so-called countertop composters, there's maybe a catch. They don't actually compost anything. Here's Vicki Nguyen.
Composting going fully curbside for all New Yorkers soon, meaning the city will pick up food scraps separate from trash and recycling. Why? Well, aside from fighting the war on rats.
But the rats don't run the city. We do.
There's an environmental reason, too. Food waste emits a massive amount of methane gas from landfills, the equivalent of more than 13 million gas-powered cars on the road for a year, according to the EPA, impacting global warming. But less than 1 in 10 households in the U.S. have access to such curbside programs, about half of which are in California, where it's now required for towns to provide organic waste collection. So if you're trying to be conscious about your footprint, what do you do with your food waste?
Really, it's a problem that starts in your kitchen.
A number of companies,
it's a convenient alternative to composting,
trying to fill the gap, like Lomi.
Lomi can compost your food waste, all at the push of a button.
And Vitamix.
Meat, bones, pits, shells. The new grinding system has the ability to process all of that into a really fine, nutrient-rich soil amendment.
Advertising these so-called countertop composters. And while Vitamix doesn't say on its own website that it's device compost, product descriptions at retailers like Crate & Barrel say it creates garden-ready compost. But experts disagree.
They're not, totally bad. They're just not composters.
Soil scientists like Virginia Lamb say the products instead simply dehydrate the food waste and grind it up. While that can help deodorize your food scraps, calling it composting, the natural process of decomposing organic matter, is a stretch.
Well, it might seem like a minor distinction to make, but I think it's kind of misleading as to what people think they're accomplishing by doing it.
And the U.S. Composting Council, an organization that promotes composting nationally, agrees, calling out the products in a public letter, quote, "Marketing these devices as composters is confusing to the public and damaging to the composting industry." The question is when confusing crosses a legal line.
If a company's advertising a product as one thing and it is not that thing, then they may be liable under a state's consumer protection laws.
Vitamix tells NBC News its products are not composters, but food waste recyclers, and that it's getting out of the countertop waste business altogether, saying it's made the strategic decision to exit the category by the end of the year. Lomi didn't respond to our request for comment, but told the New York Times in a story on the topic that its device produced pre-compost, or a nutrient-rich soil amendment.
The soil conditions for plants to grow require the right balance of nitrogen, phosphorus, acidity.
President of food recycling company Mill, Harry Tannenbaum, says the difference for you, the consumer, is that putting a big pile of the material from these dehydrators directly onto your plants at home could cause the soil to rot and attract pests when watered.
One thing we are incredibly clear about is that what comes out of Mill isn't compost.
And after grinding down your food waste, Mill even offers a program to have your grounds picked up and sent to farms for things like chicken feed, where it could be more helpful.
In markets where cities don't have curbside programs, we've been able to find farmers who are super excited to tap into these nutrients and get them back to farms.
Recycling your food is a great first step, but sometimes you got to get your hands dirty to see the true fruits of your labor. Vicki Nguyen, NBC News.
Well, thanks to Vicki for that. Still to come, some breaking news right now. The LA District Attorney, as we speak, this is a live look, giving an update on the Menendez brothers case. We've got our reporter who's watching this. We're going to come back to it right after we sneak in this quick break. So as we speak, the Los Angeles District Attorney is giving an update on the Menendez brothers murder case, saying in just the last couple of minutes that his team has a moral and an ethical obligation to review new evidence given to them. This big question now, of course, with all the attention on this case, given that new Netflix series about the brothers, could this mean a break in the case? The whole thing's getting international attention, with the show's co-creator even saying the brothers should send him flowers because of all the growing interest here. Remember, the Menendez brothers are behind bars for killing their parents in the 90s. They say they were being sexually abused by their father and acted out of self-defense. The timing here is significant because there's a hearing scheduled for next month as the brothers challenge their life sentences. Dana Griffin is following this from L.A. There was this question, like, what's this district attorney going to come out and say? Tell us more about this, right? Does this mean, like, a reopening of the case? What's going on?
Essentially, Hallie, so District Attorney George Gascon just came out to say that they have, in fact, gotten that new evidence, which includes allegations from a former member of Menudo, the Puerto Rican boy band, who claims that Jose Menendez, the father of Eric and Lyle, drugged and raped him back in the 80s. There's also new evidence of a letter that Eric wrote his cousin months before the killings to express that he was being sexually abused. So this all boils down to, was self-defense the proper defense for these two boys at the time, 19 and 21, and could this information have changed the outcome of the jury's decision? And so that's why you have the DA say that they are looking at this, they are going to do their due diligence, and there's a few things that could happen here. They could be resentenced, which means that they could walk out of prison, they could spend more time in prison but ultimately be released, or they could get a new trial. So that hearing that's scheduled in late November, that's probably going to give us more information about what the timeline could be for potential resentencing. But the DA has said specifically that he has not made a decision on whether or not this evidence is factual. He says that his team is looking at it, and he will ultimately, Hallie, make the decision in this case on whether or not to grant them a potential another look at this case and potentially vacate that 1996 sentence.
Which is so, I mean, like the amount of interest on this case, this captured global attention when it happened, and it is recapturing so much of that attention now. You've got the Netflix thing we mentioned, that Peacock docuseries, which has been a part of this as well. How much does that play into some of the dynamics here?
It's huge. I mean, this is one of the most sensational Hollywood murder stories of our generation. Two boys who murdered their parents in cold blood, according to prosecutors. Now, these boys have not denied that they killed their parents, but the question has been the why. And even during their first trial, their defense attorney said that you've got to look at why two kids would kill their parents while they sat on the couch with a shotgun multiple times. So this has reopened just the intrigue on the Menendez brothers as to why this happened. You know, some people said that the killings had to do with greed, but these kids testified at one point that they were sexually and mentally abused by their parents, specifically their father, Jose Menendez. And they said that their mother was complicit and that she didn't stop it. And so this new evidence, the new information that has come out during the Netflix series, there's also going to be a new Netflix documentary dropping on October 7th. Then you've got the Peacock documentary. It is just exposing a whole nother narrative around what happened. And are these brothers victims? Hallie?
Dana Griffin, live in L.A. Thank you very much. That does it for this hour. I'll see you Sunday on the Nightly News. Back here Monday on NBC News Now. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.